Hey everybody, Rosematter here. Welcome to part 5 of my Chaos Child playthrough. In the last episode, we got a fun connection between Chaos Child and Steins Gate with the introduction of, I believe her name is Kunosato, a high schooler who, surprise, surprise, is also a genius. And she is the one that Momose is working with. And she is a co-worker, a comrade, a friend of Kurusu, which I think is really cool. So she has shown up on the scene of the Love Hotel murder and immediately taking control and pointing things out to the detective that he didn't even notice. One connection she seemed to have made is that the sumo stickers are popping up around the areas where the murders happen, almost like they're looking down at the crime scenes. So that's the connection that Takaru has also found out, and he made like a video about it, posted it online, showing these connections with the sumo stickers, with the new Gen Madness cases. And then there was Aramura-san, who is, I feel bad, I can't remember the detective's name, but she met up with him. We learn more about her backstory. It turns out that she knew the victim of the Love Hotel murder, and he is a friend of her brother's, and her whole family died in the earthquake. So I'm guessing she probably suffers from this Chaos Child syndrome as well. And he was giving her information, the man who died. I don't know what information, little mysterious there, but there is that connection. That's why she was in the hotel with him. So that's where we left off. So let's continue on and let's see what happens next in the story. October 6th, 2015, Tuesday. 9 p.m. in front of Shibuya Station. The place was as crowded and noisy as ever. The footsteps of people rushing to the station to get home after work. The voices of people talking into their phones about where to meet for drinks. The screams of joy as old friends were reunited. It all blended together, and it all had an effect on anyone who passed through it, even for a moment. 6 years after the Shibuya earthquake, the city had been rebuilt to the point where there was nothing left to remind you of it. Everything was up and running again. Until a few years ago, many people would stop and stare and wonder at how everything was new, but not anymore. The slogan of the restoration efforts, Shibuya, a city reborn, had such an effect on people that the past was beginning to be forgotten. At least for people who weren't in Shibuya during the earthquake. Just a 1-minute walk away from the station was the Shibuya Earthquake Memorial. Kurusu made sure to always visit once a week. She would put a flower down by the name of her best friend from elementary school and pray silently. It was only a short distance from the heart of the city, but the noise and commotion didn't reach this place. This place was somberly constructed and pure, as if it wanted to be separated from all that. Today was October 6th. The earthquake was on November 6th, so this was the same day of the month. Maybe that's why there were so many flowers. Some of them were lying scattered on the ground. There was no one around. Sometimes people would come around 10:30 p.m. when the earthquake struck, but other than that, the place was mostly empty at night. Kurusu went around the area, grabbing up all the scattered flowers she could see and putting them on a nearby dais. She'd done it many times before. It was all part of her routine.
どうすればいいかな?
Kurusu was thinking about what had happened a few days before, and about her younger brother, Miyashiro.
あなた、殺されますよ。宮代拓先輩。
She'd heard it clearly. Aramura Hinai had said those words to Miyashiro. No, that was impossible. There was no way her brother was about to be caught up in something just because of what he'd learned. A sudden wind blew the flowers out of her hand. They scattered away from her. All she could do was watch. For a moment, she tried to reach out and grab them, but her hand clawed uselessly at the air. Before the feelings overwhelmed her, she turned toward the place where her friend's name was carved.
ね
She rubbed it gently. Is it going to be the name of someone that, like, we knew from the first game? The familiar sensation came to her through her fingers.
えどうすればいいかな
But the name... Okay, no, that name does not sound familiar to me. Mina Misawa Senri just echoed the question back to her. I feel like that name should be something important. I don't know.
珍しくいいアングルだ。
お前な、言っとくけどかなりめんどくさかったんだぞこれ。
どっかにくくりつけたのか？
なんか壁にくっついてる鉄パイプみたいなやつにな。
ん？
違う、それきっと雨どいだ。屋根に溜まった雨水を。
どうでもいい。くくりつけるのに使ったバンドやらは自腹切ったんだからな。明日払えよ。
設置する場所はそっちが勝手に。
言い出しっぺはそっちだろ、宮代部長。
Gah. Like, how much do rubber bands cost, dude? Just pay them
みんな
back.
で持ち回りだからな。
わかってるよ。
てか、それもいちいち面倒なんだよな。中継式のは手に入らなかったのか？
高いんだよ。
And if we tried to do wireless from there all the way to Hekiho or this place, that'd be a huge pain.
そっちは？
え？
有村さんだよ。会えたのか？
I guess. It depends on how you look at it.
明日話すよ。結構面白い情報が手に入ったから。
なんだよ、今言えよ。
そろそろ渋谷ニュースの放送が始まるんだよ。
え？今日放送あるのか？
Hehe, you should have been more careful.
ちゃんと全部チェックしとけよ。今日の更新文の最後に書いてあったぞ、伊藤部員。
やかましい！
He hung up on me angrily. I put the phone down and checked the time. About 5 more minutes. I opened Shibuya News and waited for the broadcast to start. After that... Aramura-san had waited about an hour before she'd come out of Cafe Lax. I thought about pretending to run into her, but I didn't want to go up to her too fast and have her find out I was listening. As I waited for the right moment, she got in a taxi and left. She was probably heading to the Shibuya police station for an interrogation. This was amazing. I wasn't able to talk to Aramura-san, but I knew I'd managed to get much more important information. There was a lot about their conversation I didn't understand, but I was right about one thing. The police were treating the incidents, or at least revolving dead, as murders.
いや、警察はじゃないのかもしれない。
That detective, Shinjo-san, was it? He seemed to be acting separately from the rest of the police force. And he had some kind of secret about it that he shared with Aramura-san. But more importantly than that, and more importantly than anything,
会話に出てきたシールっていうのは力士シールのことだ。
from what he'd been saying, I was sure of it. And while he knew about the sumo stickers, he didn't seem to realize their importance. Maybe he hadn't realized they were at the other 2 crime scenes. Good. I really was one step ahead of the police.
やっぱり、これはまたとないチャンスなんだ。
If I kept it up, I might be able to learn more about the case than anyone else. More than the ignorant kids getting ready for the festival. More than the people who had to cling to the internet for information. More than even the police. More than Kawahara-kun, that jerk who called me a pretend reporter. And more than the rest of the class who called me a camera kid.
情弱を全員見返してやれ。
はい。2015年10月7日、0時になりました。皆様、ようこそいらっしゃいませ。K さんと申します。
Shibuya News' net radio started just like it said it would. Kei's voice was as pleasant and clear as ever. The last broadcast was after the Love Hotel incident, so it would have been September 30th. It had been about a week.
まとわりつく暑さはもうなくなりましたね。発表されている通りならしばらくは過ごしやすい気温になると思いますが、いかがお過ごしでしょうか。
As I listened to her voice read out all the latest information from Shibuya, I grabbed a magazine off a cabinet shelf. It was a back issue of Cool Cat Press that I'd bought, or rather been forced to buy from Gensan. Just like with Keisan's broadcasts, it had been a while since I'd spent any time with this. I flipped through the pages looking for an interesting article. It was still mostly junk. 10 ways to make your ideal girl like you, how to tell your ideal girl you like her, what to say to your ideal girl to get her into your bed, etc. There was a lot of articles that were of no interest to me whatsoever. Nope, none at all. As I carefully read through these articles, which did not interest me at all, I found a small section in the back that was something a little different. Rorschach will reveal her naked heart, how to know exactly what she's thinking. The article consisted of a strange, symmetrical drawing in black ink, along with commentary from a psychoanalyst about what each said about your personality. Or at least it was someone who claimed to be a psychoanalyst. And at the very end, there were even diagrams on how to use the pictures to see how popular you were, or how compatible you were with a certain girl.
もう何でもありだな、この本。
I whispered to myself. The Rorschach test was a famous personality test. Alright, Rorschach test, a famous type of projective personality test invented by a Swiss psychiatrist. A projective test is a test which gives the subject stimuli that can be interpreted in multiple ways and uses their response to learn more about who they are or what they're thinking. In the Rorschach test, ink is dripped onto a piece of paper, which is then folded in half and unfolded in order to create a symmetrical image. This image is then shown to the test subject, and their response is recorded. Rorschach images always come in a set of 10 cards, and the use of these sets requires a great deal of knowledge and skill. Much research has been done on the use of Rorschach cards since their invention, and their use continues to this day. Well, considering that one of the songs, the tracks in this game is called like Rorschach something, I feel like that is also going to be, I guess maybe like the whole thing with the sumo sticker, like what do you see when you look at it? You know, maybe that's like they're going to delve into something about Rorschach tests into more like detail, because this seems like pretty far removed, especially in like a men's magazine, you know? The test involved pouring black and red ink down a folded card and spreading it out to create a strange symmetrical shape. Different people would see the shape as a dog's head or a man and a woman kissing, and what you saw told you about your personality. But the idea of using it to determine your popularity or your compatibility with a certain girl was just so stupid I had to laugh.
この図形は羊か？何々？これが羊などの毛に覆われた動物に見えたあなたは、本心を隠そうという意識が強く、女の子には何を考えているかわからない人ととても警戒されています。そんなあなたのモテ度は20点です。なんだと？
I snapped back to my senses. That was close. I almost did the whole test. Does anyone do those things where they do like their like the online test, like what character are you, or like, you know, things about like what your favorite such and such determines about your personality, and then you don't like your answers, you're like, I'm gonna go back and I'm just gonna choose other answers. I tossed the magazine on my desk, and then, as if she'd been waiting for me to finish, Keisan's voice became a little more serious.
さて、このように今日も渋谷ではいろんなニュースがありましたが、そろそろ本題に入りましょう。今日、放送の機会を設けさせていただいたのは、ある一つの記事を皆さんに紹介したいと思ったからです。
Huh? The point? Oh, I wonder if it's the one that, like the video that they put up that got like no views. What article was she talking about? It was more a video than an article, though. I listened intently to Keisan's words. Oh shit!
この放送やサイトでも 頻繁に取り上げさせていただいている事件に関してだ
Okay, so she's the girl who
So,
was working with the
今
detective.
渋谷で起こっている連続猟奇事件です。6年前の渋谷で連続して起こったニュージェネレーションの狂気という事件の日付と
I guess it makes sense that she seems to know a lot of information other people don't.
以前に述べましたが、この動画はそれ以外の共通点を指摘してくださっています。
It is a video, so she probably did find the video that they put up. What? Did someone other than us notice?
このアドレスです。
I clicked the link she posted immediately after I saw it. It was a URL for a Nikonia video. The few seconds it took to load felt like an eternity. Hey! You made it, man! You made it! Your video's gonna go viral! Yes! Huh? I saw the thumbnail for the video and quickly turned away. I immediately grabbed my phone.
Onoe, Shibuya News 聞いてるか？早く見てみろ。僕らの動画が特集されてる。
October 7th, 2015, Wednesday. Sakura Gaoka-cho, Shibuya. Frisia Credit Bureau. Hey, we're gonna go to see Momo?
それでは今回はこの辺りでお付き合いいただきありがとうございます。わずかな時間のお相手は私 K さんでした。時刻は間もなく2015年10月7日0時22分。悔いのない一日が始められることを祈っています。
Kunosato gave her usual sign-off and ended the broadcast. She stretched expansively, her shoulders cracking as the stretch passed through her entire body. She knew that acting like a proper lady was the way to get listeners for these guerrilla radio broadcasts, but it still felt like she was taking things too far. After almost 100 times, she was used to it, but she'd never finished a broadcast without feeling exhausted.
なんだ。
いや。お疲れ様
There
みお
she
ちゃん。
is.
コーヒーは？
もらいます。
Shinjo watched, stunned, as Mio leaned back in her chair, crossed her legs, and accepted a coffee from Momose.
昼間の有村といい、最近の若い女の子はどうなっ
What
てるんだ
about, yeah, about people just like, they got their two sides to them, right? She sure didn't look like a girl who'd been speaking into a computer microphone with a pleasant voice just moments ago. He knew this was what she was really like, but...
はあ
Her eyes met with his.
何をしていたんだ今のは。
情報の発信だ。他に何がある？
ん？
That made no sense. Broadcasting information?
まあ、新庄ちゃんがわからないのも無理はないけどね。
Momose glanced over at Kunosato.
みおちゃんはうちの大切な情報屋なの。本業は研究者だけど。
はあ？その年でですか？
そう。アメリカの研究所に飛び級で招かれた天才。
私は秀才型です。天才ってやつはこんなもんじゃない。
それ、よく電話で話してるあ
Yeah,
なたがお世話になっ
Kurusu.
た子のこと？
Kunosato nodded and started to massage her tired shoulders.
うん。
He'd had no idea. He thought she was pretty grown up for a 17-year-old, but
何の研究を？
私のプロフィールが事件と関係あるのか？
いや、そうじゃないが。
ここよ。
Momose pointed at Shinjo's head.
頭？
脳みそ。量子脳論特別研究員。
Quantum brain dynamics, the name given to a scientific field that attempts to explain brain activity, particularly human consciousness, from a quantum mechanical perspective.
なぜ壁宝学園に？
渋谷にある壁宝はいろいろとカオスチャイルド症候群を研究するのにちょうどいいからよ。ね。
Yes, let's get into this
本題
child,
に入りませんか？
chaos child syndrome. Without waiting for Shinjo or Momose to agree, she continued.
有村は力士シールについて何か言っていたか？
俺にはタメ口なんだよな。
He sighed to himself.
おい、
いや、何を気にしているか知らないが、気味悪がっていただけだ。
確かか？
何をそんなに気にしている？そういえば、さっきもシールについて何か言っていたな。
He thought back to how different Kunosato's voice was when she was on the radio.
あれは何をしていたんだ？
だから情報の発信だと言っただろ。
ん？
ちゃんと説明してあげたら？これから新庄ちゃんとは解決まで協力することになるんだし。
Kunosato didn't bother to hide her displeasure at Momose's interruption.
ギブアンドテイクでしょ。
もらえるものがあればいいんですがね。
That was enough to piss Shinjo off.
お前な、少しは年長者に対する敬意を。
今年発表された主要メディアの利用率を知っているか？
は？
ネットの利用者は全体で7割、10代では8割、20代30代では9割が利用していて、いずれもテレビよりも利用率が高い。都市部に限定すればもっと上がる。10代20代で新聞を日常的に利用しているやつは1割もいない。去年も一昨年もそう変わらん。中学生へのスマホの普及率は半分以上。高校生以上になると9割5分。スマホを持っていることはネットを利用していることと同義だ。
待て、何の話だ？
普段手に入れる情報をネットだけに依存している人間がどれだけいると思う？
Kunosato suddenly stood up and brought over the laptop she'd been using to stream. She opened something on the screen for Shinjo to see. It was the homepage of a major newspaper dated yesterday. There was an article about a Shibuya resident suing SafeWorks for invasion of privacy.
これは私が起こした。
ん？
Oh, I caused
監視
this.
社会の問題を考える団体の一人がツイポの中毒者でな。同様の思想を持つアカウントとホームページを別々の人間としてでっち上げ、過去にあった効果的な判例に誘導し、複数人からあなたは被害者だと言われているように思わせた。
Oh, she like talking about how easy it is to manipulate like the news and manipulate people's like information.
踏ん切りがつかなかったようだから、週末に更新側が取った無礼な態度を録音させ、それをネタに炎上させた。その結果が。
Was this, she said as she tapped the laptop.
まさか。
ネットに依存しているやつが一番食いつく情報は、自分にとって都合がいいネット以外のメディアの情報だ。かけてもいいが、こいつは提訴に関して、私が紹介した書籍以外は一行も読んでないぞ。
She seems like she's kind of on the same wavelength as Takaru, where she would be like, they're wrong siders. Like they just, they don't take in information properly. They're sheep. They just see stuff and they just believe it without doing any other research. Not that I've ever seen her face, Kunosato continued. The way she spoke alone was enough to make Shinjo believe she was telling the truth.
なんでそんなことを？
百瀬さんから更新がきな臭いことは聞いているだろう。私も同じ考えだ。なるべくイメージを落としておきたい。そして私が今欲しいのは力士シールに関する情報だ。
The screen was indeed showing a picture of the sumo sticker. Like, that looks like a Rorschach thing a little bit. Like, the way it's kind of, like, doubled. It's, like, reflected. And then... I bet it's a whole thing. I bet, like, the thing about this is they look like faces. It looks like a sumo sticker, but I bet there's going to be a reveal that the picture is something completely different. Shinjo's gaze landed on a phrase in the video's introduction. Wasn't that where those kids who snuck into the Love Hotel went?
首を突っ込むなと注意しておいたのに。
His tone was irritated as he remembered the faces of the boy and the girl. Kunosato, however, seemed to find it rather entertaining.
なかなかに気のつく連中だ。利用できるときに利用しておく。今から、そうだな。12時間もすれば、この動画に力士シールに関しての情報が殺到する。
え？
さっきの放送での情報発信は、そのための仕込みの一つだ。
After what she'd just told him about her dealings with SafeWorks, he couldn't help but believe her.
何新庄ちゃん。
いえ。
He realized he must have been looking at Momose for an answer. Just who was this girl?
あ、ダメよ新庄ちゃん。みおちゃんに手出したら。
何言ってるんですか?
He felt his cheeks turn red at this entirely unexpected response.
違います。これは図星とかではなく。
わかってるわよ。まだまだね。
有村は他に同類を見つけていないんだな。
Kunosato interrupted.
ああ、そう言っていた。
であれば、次に狙われる可能性があると分かっているのは有村だけになる。何の目的かは知らないが、おそらく10月10日に。
ああ。
October 10th, the date of the vampire incident 6 years ago.
いざとなったらおとりに使ってしまえばいい。狙われるかどうかは分からんがな。
そんなことできるわけないだろう。
Shinjo slammed his fist down on the desk and glared at Kunosato. That was going too far, even for him. But... Instead of getting scared, Kunosato glared back at him with an expression he'd never seen before. Her face was cold and dangerous, like the blade of a knife. She looked more like one of those people he'd arrested than anyone he'd saved.
お前は事件の解決に協力してくれるんだろう。言っておくが、いざという時の指示には従ってもらうぞ。
こちらも言っておくがな。
Kunosato put her hands on the desk and drew closer to him.
私がまず殺したいのは今回の事件の犯人で、その次は有村をはじめとするそいつらだ。
Oh shit. Oh damn. Okay. Wow. So she wants to kill Arimura? By Arimura and her ilk, does she mean like people who have Chaos Child Syndrome or something else? Okay.
めんどくさいな。
だな。
Ito whispered as he turned the camera around to the room, and I wholeheartedly agreed. We were in our classroom after school. The culture festival was just 3 days away, and from this afternoon until the day of the event, classes were cancelled to allow more time for the preparations. The rest of the class must have been getting excited because they were making even more noise than usual as they started moving around desks and furniture. Since this marked the start of real preparations for the culture festival, the newspaper club needed to go around and take more footage of the rest of the school. We'd been on our feet all afternoon. I didn't have time for this right now.
うっとうしいな。
だな。
Ito whispered as he saw the group glancing at us from a corner of the classroom.
え、マジ？必死すぎじゃん。
つーか何？ニコニヤにアップなんかしてんの？あいつら。
パクるとかどんだけだよ。
パクリじゃない。
Damn those wrong-siders. Didn't they look at the timestamp?
てか、みんな思った以上にニコニヤ見てんだな。
うちのクラスの出し物、ゲロカエルン喫茶だろ。
ん？ああ。
ゲロカエルンの再ブームの火付けになった動画。例の記者の渡部が特集したの
This
がきっか
Watabe
けなん
guy,
だ。
like, he's got to be behind the whole like conspiracy of like what's going on. He keeps popping up, right? Especially because he is a big factor in the media. Media controls what people think. Yeah, I'm having a feeling he's probably a player in all this. So a lot of them knew who Watabe was.
それでかよ。
Ito sighed again. He was probably getting sick of the glances and whispers he'd been getting since lunchtime. So was I. Good.
宮代。なんですか？
The look on Kawahara-kun's face said, I have better things to do than waste time with you right now.
文化祭の記録映像、どのくらい進んでる？
Whew, so that's all he wanted to talk about?
ですね。その、
How am I supposed to answer that? We're just recording video, so there's really no clear point when it will be finished. Please stop looking at me like that.
なんだよ。どのくらいだ？いや、その、
順調に撮ってるよ。どうかしたのか？
文化祭の閉会式の時、バックに流したらいい演出になるんじゃないかっていう案が出た。できそうか？
Ito put his hand on my shoulder.
大丈夫だよな。
おお、多分。
だと。
じゃあ、細かい打ち合わせは明日するから。
Huh?
ちょっと待ってください。
I found myself speaking to Kawahara-kun as he turned to leave. I don't have time for...
なんだ？
No,
なんでもないです。
Kawahara-kun looked irritated that I'd stopped him.
行こう、クルス。クルス？
Kurusu seemed to be thinking about something. It wasn't clear if she'd heard him or not. She then suddenly looked at me.
タクル。
なんだよ。
For once, Kurusu seemed uncertain about what to say. Come to think of it, this was the first time I had talked to her since the incident with Aramura-san.
ちょっと来て。
She dragged me out to the corner of an empty hallway. I shook her hand off my arm.
何？どうしたんだよ。
Kurusu cradled the hand I'd shaken off protectively.
あれから有村さんと会った？
あれからって、生徒会室で会ってからってこと？
She nodded.
会ってないよ。
That wasn't a lie. I hadn't spoken to her directly after all.
そう。
What?
有村さんがどうかしたのか？
Kurusu remained silent, her lips pressed into a thin line. And then...
事件の動画アップしたでしょ。すぐに削除しなさい。
Had she been checking our page?
事件を追うのもやめなさい。ラブホテルの一件で懲りたでしょ。
Yeah, she's probably just like, she heard that thing that or Aramura said about like, you're gonna be killed, and she's probably just like protecting him, you know, like, don't dig too deep into this, you're gonna get into forces that you can't even comprehend.
確かに、警察には連れて行かれたけど、別に。
取り返しのつかないことになる可能性だってあるの。
There was something different about the way she talked. Her whole personality was different than usual. It wasn't as forceful. She was lecturing me, but instead of looking me in the eye, she was cradling her arm. It was as if she was speaking to herself, not to me. For the first time since I'd left the orphanage, I thought I might be able to win an argument with her.
危ないことはしてない。新しくアップした動画だって、普通の取材の範囲だったろ。今、あの動画はいろいろあって注目されてる。僕はそれに書き込むことしかできない他の連中とは違う。
またそんなこと。子供じゃないんだから。
部室に行く。教室に戻るんなら伊藤に先に行ってるって伝えておいて。
I turned around without waiting for her answer. When I'd gotten a good distance away, she said,
タクル、あなたも他の人と違わない。ただの高校生でしょ。
Her voice wasn't as strong as usual, but there was no trace of anything like kindness in it either. I didn't stop walking. A minute later, Ito ran up to me and we walked to the clubroom together. Ito asked if something had happened, but I told him it wasn't the case.
あ、やっと来た。二人とも遅いよ。
悪い。どうなってる？
さっきもう10万超えちゃったよ。コメントは5000超え。
Huh?
マジで？
Ito raced over to the PC that Sarika was looking at.
マジじゃねえか。おい、見えしろ。
落ち着けよ。10万くらいどうってことないじゃないか。
震えてんじゃねえか。
Shut up.
本当だ。超えてる。
Yesterday, the video had only 5 views, but now it had over 100,000. Actually, it was getting close to 110,000.
マジでか。
The cause was obvious. It was the Nikonia news video that had been updated this morning.
渡部の記事のコメントは？
さっき見た感じじゃ炎上してる雰囲気だったけど。
Sarika opened the page.
うん、やっぱり今もだね。
One out of every 3 or 4 comments on the article was criticizing it. I took a quick look at them.
気取り屋がほとんどだな。ツイーポと連動してるから、ろくに中身を確かめずに書き込んでる連中が湧いてるのか。
Fakers, a term repurposed by Miyashiro, refers to someone who brags about knowing information easily available with a simple internet search, who writes comments with inaccurate information and pretends to be a right-sider. In Miyashiro's mind, their words are no different than meaningless scribbles, and he considers all fakers to be wrong-siders. It was this morning when we realized that something was going on with the view count on the video we uploaded. After Shibuya News had linked to it, the views had gone up to almost 10,000 overnight. That in itself was a big deal. It was getting views faster than any video in the club's history. But this was to be expected. Kei-san had a lot of followers. After the broadcast had ended around midnight, Ito, Sarika, and I had gotten excited and quickly got in touch on our smartphones. We'd stayed up until close to dawn watching the number go up. But just before noon, it had really started to climb. Just as we decided to see where these new viewers were coming from, we noticed a comment on the video saying, "I came from Watabe's article." This was the article they were referring to. Nikonia's web reporter Watabe had figured out the sumo stickers were being placed near the crime scenes. And he had a never-before-seen photo of the room at the Love Hotel from the Revolving Dead incident. And in that photo...
僕の方が先に気づいていたのに。
Watabe had realized the photo contained a sumo sticker, and that the other crime scenes had sumo stickers nearby as well. He had written up his findings in an article and published it. And as a result, people had come over to our video that discussed the same topic. Oh, so that's what they're saying. The people in the classroom were like, "Oh, they're just ripping off Watabe." Okay, so that's why he said, "Guys, check the timestamps." Yeah, that's true, but...
素直にこの記事のインパクトってわけじゃないだろう。どっちかっていうと、渡部がパクったって騒いでる奴らが多いってだけで。
バカ！それでも10万は10万だろう。しかもこの短時間にコメントだってめちゃめちゃ来てんだぞ。
まあ、そうだけどさ。
Still, it was hard for me to be happy. The reason we were getting so many views and comments was because the contents of Watabe's article were so similar to ours. Not many viewers seemed to think we were amateurs who would just happen to put something together similar to Nikonia News. A lot of people were enjoying the scandal of Watabe, the up-and-coming reporter plagiarizing an amateur video. It was true we had uploaded our video before Watabe. That was obvious from the timestamps. Well, some of our classmates seemed to think we had ripped off Watabe, though.
まるっきり炎上マーケティングみたいだ。
Hey, no such thing as bad press, right? All attention is good attention. Flame war, a large-scale internet argument that can become extremely heated. There are even marketing strategies that involve starting a flame war in order to increase sales or awareness of a product.
この渡部の記事がだよ。渡部が本当に記事をパクったかどうかはわからないけど。
いや、それはないだろう。素人のやつをパクった炎上を利用するってネットの記者とはいえありえないだろ
う。Well, maybe.
それに炎上なんかで騒ぎを集めなくても渡部は十分知名度あるだろう。スクープ連発してんだから。しかも俺らの動画アップしたの一昨日だろ。再生数もほとんどなかったし、渋谷ニュースで再生数伸びたって言っても今朝の話だ。この記事なんて明らかにそこから用意したものじゃねえだろ。
うん。
That was true too, but something still bothered me. There were several conditions that had to be met for a flame war to really take off. Two of the biggest were that a famous person had to be the target, and that the mainstream media had to get involved. In this context, it is a derogatory term for major media organs such as TV, newspapers, and radio. The term itself existed before the advent of the internet, but in Japan it's used almost exclusively as net slang. Its use is often rooted in the belief that all forms of media besides the internet are in bed with corporations, political parties, or special interest groups, and refuse to broadcast the truth. The term also represents a lot of the criticisms against the media, such as how many reporters are arrogant lunatics who don't hesitate to invade people's privacy in the name of freedom of the press. Just having our video picked up by Shibuya News was a first for us. What were the odds that the perfect fodder for an epic flame war would get posted at the exact same time?
考えたって仕方ないだろ。
Ito said as he watched me mumble to myself.
せっかくなんだ。見てくれた人のコメントから情報を漁ろうぜ。ほら、力士シールのこと書き込んでくれてるやつもいる。おい、宮代、チャンスなんだろ。
Ito seemed unable to contain his excitement. Actually,
やけに元気だなお前。
は？そうか？
しんちゃんが前に作った動画100いかなかったもんね。
Ito's face suddenly went red.
別にそれは関係ねえよ。
Is Takuru gonna be like, you're only doing this for the like the prestige, you just want to be popular, you want people to know who you are? It's like you're no different from the mainstream media, dude. Was that why?
見るなよ。ほら、文化祭の映像撮んのに時間取られたんだから、とっととやるぞ。和樹。
Okay, we'll do a positive one here. Kazuki looked up from her game. She had been totally ignoring all of this.
渡部の記事の画像、適当にプリントアウトしてくれ。
Ito took them and stood in front of the board. He started to put them up. His face was still red. He glared at the images as he looked for a spot to put them.
ほら、早く動画を確認しろよ。
Well, whatever. If he thinks he's fooling me like that, then I'll let him think that. I still felt sick.
サムネイルは飛ばしてくれ。
オッケー。私もやだもん。
She skipped past the image of the sumo sticker and started to scroll through just the comments. Like, it seems to be maybe people who have this who had something happen during the earthquake. Like, Aramura lost her family. Obviously, these two have dealt with trauma from it. Maybe they've got the chaos child syndrome. They seem to be the one who are affected by the stickers. Everyone else seems to be, like, fine with them, but they have, like, an actual visceral reaction when they see them. She skipped past the image of the sumo sticker and started to scroll through just the comments. There were a lot of different types of comments. Some were claiming that Watabe had ripped us off. Some of them were saying all kinds of horrible things about us. Very few of them were discussing the actual video. These weren't the comments I was interested in.
あ、メール来た。
メール？
That was the sound of the PC made when it got an incoming email. The email address it used was for the newspaper club. Ito and I had a joint account we used to upload videos onto Nikonia, and the email address was written on our profile page. Normal users never bothered to check out a profile page, so we almost never got any email. Sarika opened the email program on the computer. There was a single new email.
メールより動画だろ
このタイミングだし、タレコミ情報かもしれない。
タレコミって何の？
それはだから、動画に関連した何かの。
Ito seemed unsatisfied, but it would only take a minute to check out the email. I asked Sarika to open it.
これって。
なんだよ。
読むね。こんにちは。渋谷ニューズの管理人、ケイです。
Kei?
Kei-san got in touch with us. Yes, now I'm excited.
あなたの作成した動画、とても興味深くて、昨日の私の番組で取り上げさせてもらいました。よければ連絡先を交換しませんか？素晴らしい発見をしたあなたとぜひお近づきになりたいの。
She's like, also, I'm incredibly attracted to you, even though I've never met you before.
今度直接会ってお話をさせてください。
Get to know me better. Yep, meet me in person. I gulped. Kei-san had recognized our work. There could be no greater honor.
本物なのか？
ケイさんを語って連絡してくる意味がない。
And the address matched the one used by Shibuya News.
まだ続きあるよ。
Oh my gosh, it is
私の
too.
自撮り画
Haha.
像を添付します。あなたの写真を返信してくれると嬉しいです。
自撮り画像？
Kei-san had never put a picture of her face up on Shibuya News. Her broadcast was always voice only. Of course, I'd heard her voice, but I'd never seen her face. In my mind, I pictured her as a highly intelligent girl. And she'd sent a picture of her face?
ウイルスが仕込まれてるんじゃ。
Why is Ito so suspicious of everything? Kei-san wants to get in touch with us. Would it kill you to be a little more excited?
ケイさんはそんなことしないだろ。
I would believe in Kei-san. I wanted to believe.
お前、渋谷ニュースの信者だもんな。好きにしろ。
信者じゃないけど、ファンなのは確かだ。尾上、添付ファイルを開いてみてくれ。
OK。
This was my chance to see Kei-san. I couldn't wait. I felt like I was meeting my future bride. Sarika moved the mouse and opened the attached file, and what appeared was...
エロいな。
No, no, no.
ケイさんはそんな軽薄な人間じゃないし。
おい、宮代。何ブツブツ言ってるんだ？ちゃんと見てるのか？
え？
Ito and Sarika were looking at each of the comments on the video. Sarika flipped past any points where the sumo sticker appeared and just scrolled through the comments. Oops, now isn't the time to be getting weird ideas.
渡部パクってんじゃねえよ。こっちの方が本当に早いの。マスゴミ被害者はこちらです。
そこら辺の議論はどうでもいいな。シールで検索かけてくれ。
OK。
ろくな情報がないな。
One guy was calling it the Fatso sticker, another was saying, Sumo sticker is my waifu. Sarika must have been getting annoyed with it too because she started to use her free hand to play with her Giro Froggy strap. But a moment later, her hand froze.
あ、これは？
力士シールの作者なんて KLX だろ。超着オツ。ね。
You're the wrong sider, moron. Sure, there was a theory on the internet that an artist named Kalex was behind the stickers, but no one had found any proof. They'd probably just read the title or the first few lines of an article somewhere that said Kalex was the artist who created the stickers, and never gave it any more thought.
このアドレスは
There was a URL amongst the comments that was pasted with no explanation whatsoever.
飛んでみる？
ちょっと待ってくれ。
I took a look at the letters in the address.
単にアマブロのアドレスだよな。
I wasn't sure, but it didn't look like a very dangerous page.
オッケー。
Okay, yeah, this one was brought up before. And this was posted, let me see, August 1st. A moment later, I was staring at a page with an ugly, garish background. I looked away from the sumo sticker that was its hit counter.
なんだここ。
Serica clicked through the links on the page.
歴史シールを特集してるページみたいだね。
It must have been a lot of work to get all these. Was this from before the earthquake? Well, yeah, it says, before the earthquake. No, it says date taken 2014, so a year ago. Serica must have still been bothered by the stickers because before she said anything, she scrolled down to the text-only part of the page.
このシールの目は滅びを予見し、これを未然に防ぐためのもの。2015年の人類滅亡の予言は被害はあったものの、これによって守られた？
2015年の人類滅亡の予言？エジプト歴の人類滅亡説か。
The Egyptian apocalypse, the theory that humanity will be wiped out on September 23rd, 2015. The theory was proposed by an Egyptologist who stated the Temple of Isis, an important ancient Egyptian religious site, depicted 1,465 gods, as well as an ancient legend that stated that if the temple is sealed every autumn equinox, one of the gods within will lose its power. When the last god loses its power, the world will be drowned in water. The temple was sealed in 550 CE, which meant that on the fall equinox of 2015, i.e. September 23rd, 2015, the last god would lose its power and the world would be drowned.
よく知ってるね。
Hehe.
常識だよ。
I read further down the page and saw that he considered the crash of 15 to be part of the prophecy, and said the stickers had saved humanity.
色使いといい、ちょっと来てるな、ここの管理人は。
そういえば渋谷ってクラッシュの時あまり大きな騒ぎにならなかったよね。歴史シールって太陽嵐を軽減する効果でもあるのかな？
Idiot, why would you believe that?
渋谷の被害が少なかったのは単に復興計画で街が整備されていたおかげだよ。これは単なる結界説。
結界説？
How could she forget that? A long time ago, we spent a lot of time looking into this.
相撲の発祥が神事であったことから、相撲を行う力士をモデルとした歴史シールに宗教的な意味を持たせて、あちこちに貼ることによって結界を築いているんだっていう説だよ。
宗教的な意味って？
Crap, I don't know.
とにかく、結界説はナンセンスなんだ。歴史シールって呼ばれてるけど、力士をモデルにしたっていう証拠はないんだから。
Good, I guess I fooled her.
タク、これは？
なんだ？知ってるぞ。
知ってるの？作者。
え？
This, Serica said as she pointed to a page about the creator of the sumo stickers.
いや、勘違いだ。
Okay, let's read it. As I said in my last entry, I'm going to go into more detail about the sumo stickers. First, I'd like to answer a question that is on the minds of everyone who visits here. Who made them? Many people seem to get this wrong, but the creator of the sumo stickers is not, in fact, Kalex. There is no proof that he, or perhaps she, is the creator of the stickers. This is Kalex's homepage. There are several images in the gallery that are similar to the sumo stickers, but none of the sumo stickers themselves. As an artist, Kalex has put a focus on symmetry in order to achieve eerie effects in many of their illusions. That sounds like Rorschach, doesn't it? Of course, that explains why they're similar to the sumo stickers. It's likely a careless remark by someone who doesn't know the truth of the sumo stickers was the source of the rumor. Maybe it's a thing that it is like a Rorschach thing, and only people who have the Chaos Child syndrome are able to see that eye thing that Takaru saw. And maybe, like I said, that's why people who might have been affected by this syndrome, they find the stickers creepy, whereas other people don't. Anyway, that's just my theory. Okay. If it wasn't Kalux who created them, I know who. In fact, I've made contact with them.
Okay.
The background was using the nastiest colors I'd ever seen. My eyes were starting to hurt. What's this?
巷で言われているように、歴史シールの作者は KLX ではない。
Between this and the sheer number of sumo sticker photos, it was clear the page's author was a little crazy, but had done their homework.
このシールの作者は、結界を築くために人類の犠牲になったのだ。
No, maybe more than a little crazy. They were totally nuts. I hadn't read a page like this in a while.
その犠牲となった尊敬すべき作者は
I stopped scrolling down the page.
これ
Her voice was shaking a little as she pointed at the screen.
H 総合病院にそのまま置いている。
タク
I knew what she was trying to say. I could see Serica's shock out of the corner of my eye, but I couldn't take my eyes off the words AH Tokyo General Hospital. Is that where maybe Serica was when she was like all assuming that was her in the flashbacks where it's like the images that Takaru sees of the pink-haired girl that's like strapped up. Maybe that was at the hospital? That was the hospital. That was the hospital I'd snuck into with Serica in elementary school. The one I saw in my dreams all the time.
おい、宮代。宮代って。
Or maybe that wasn't Serica, and maybe it was just someone that they saw, like they opened up a door and they saw people strapped down. Like, I initially thought that it could have been Rimi that they saw. But Rimi, wasn't she in like the basement of the hospital? Like she was hidden away. It all's coming together, somehow. What? Kazuki stuck her face in front of the display from the side and pointed toward Ito.
なんだよ。
やべえぞ、これ。
Ito was staring at the board as he whispered. Then he walked straight up to it.
やっぱり。おい、これ見てみろって。
He pointed toward the pictures that were stuck up on the board.
どうしたんだよ。
Does it create, like, do all the connections, do they create something like a picture? A pattern? I tried to hide my shock at what I'd just seen, but my voice was quivering. But Ito was completely ignoring me. He ripped off a few of the pictures. And stuck them back up. The huge number of sumo stickers. And then the long-distance shots of the ones found at the crime scenes.
ここ、見てみろ。
I could tell that Ito and Serica turned to look at me when I laughed. I thought back to the conversation I had just had with Kurusu. Something terrible might happen? Well, I'll keep going anyway. I'll probably keep going all the way, because I'm not just an ordinary teenage boy. October 7th, 2015, Wednesday. 8 p.m. Tomagaya, Shibuya. Ioba Clinic. A 2-minute walk from Yoyogi Park Station. This private clinic, 20 minutes away from the heart of Shibuya, was loved by the locals for its homey, comfortable atmosphere. The clinic offered internal and pediatric medical services. It had no facilities to allow someone to stay overnight. The wait was 10 minutes at worst. God, that sounds amazing. Some days it was more common to find the director's drinking buddies there telling bawdy jokes than it was to find patients. The only full-time doctor was the clinic's director. He had 2 nurses. The only times it ever got busy was during flu shot season and when the director's neighborhood baseball team had its annual tournament.
かしいな。ここにねえってことは。
The clinic's second floor. This floor, with its living room, kitchen, and bath, and the third floor with the rooms for the children, formed the group home. Oh, group home. Aobai Dormitory. Is this where Takeru and Kurusu? Is this where they stayed? There was no sign identifying it outside, so if you just walked by the building, you'd have no way of knowing the upper floors were an orphanage.
ズキズキ来やがる。ここにもね。おい、ノノ。
もうちょっとだから。
Oh, Kurusu, okay. Yep.
ちげえよ。薬がどこ行ったかって。
Sakuma Wataru, the director of the Aoba Clinic and I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Aoba Dormitory looked at the dinner lined up on the table and froze. Boiled vegetables, white fish with plum, tofu hamburg steak, natto, rolled omelet with shisho leaves. The oldest girl at the dorm had been in charge of cooking ever since she came here when she was in 6th grade. Every year, she started cooking more and more like an old woman.
お前な、おばあちゃんじゃねえんだから、肉とかよ。
腹回りの贅肉を減らしてから言ってちょうだい。嫌ですからね、老後に高血圧治療の面倒見るの。
食べ盛りもいるってのに。ああ、しょ。
Sakuma pressed his hands up against his temples and rubbed them.
どうしたの？
老気ないか、見当たらねえんだよ。
何、頭痛？
ああ。
確か。ってちょっと待って。もしかして二日酔い？
Sakuma moaned a little. Kurusu smiled gently at him, still holding the kitchen knife.
父さん、そもそも課長で医者であるあなたが病院の仕事手伝ってるとはいえ、見習い看護師以下で娘である私に薬の場所を聞くのも問題ですけど。
And because I am suspicious of adult figures in these games, like, I wouldn't be surprised if this guy ended up being a villain or an antagonist or something, and he's taking these children in, but secretly, like, doing psyops or something on them, or he's got, like, some sort of, like, you know, has a clinic, maybe he's doing some bad experiments, I don't know. He could be a totally fine guy who is actually wanting to just take care of kids,
残った事務仕事を私が片付けてる時に晩酌してたの？
いや、仕事は俺だってしてたぞ。
じゃあ、仕事中に飲んでたってことね。そんな酔っ払いに出せる薬はありません。あと、1週間禁酒にしますから。
はあ？おい、ノノ、冗談だろ。
できた。2人とも呼んできて。ごちそうさま。おいしかった。ごちそうさま。はい、おそ松さま。お茶入れるね。ゆう、手伝って。
Her little brother nodded, and together they took the plates the four of them had been eating on to the kitchen. It was their job to clean up. Tachibana Yui and Tachibana Yuto were brother and sister. They were the only two siblings at the Aoba dorm who were actually related by blood, and the rest of the neighborhood thought it was cute how they were always together. The Shibuya earthquake had occurred when Yui was in 2nd grade and Yuto was only 6, and hadn't started school. After the earthquake, the two of them had come to Aoba dorm. The two of them had been depressed for a long time, between the shock of losing their parents and their experiences in the earthquake's aftermath. Now they'd made it to the 2nd year of middle school for Yui, and the last year of elementary school for Yuto.
ノノ、明日の夕飯は先に食べてていいぞ。
During the meal, Sakuma had complained about Nono's ban on his drinking, but Yui had told him he'd brought it on himself. He'd spent the rest of dinner muttering to himself, but by now he'd calmed down a little.
最近バタついてるからよ。
Like, the fact he's taking in kids from, like, who experienced the earthquake, possibly related to the Chaos Child Syndrome, I feel like he's doing some like studies on them or whatever. I got a bad feeling about this guy.
嫌です。温め直すのめんどくさいもの。それにバラバラに食事するのって好きじゃないの。できるだけ家族揃って食べたい。でもバタついてるってどうしたの？
With totally innocent stuff, I'm sure. Kurusu checked the clock as she spoke. It was almost 9. Aoba Clinic closed at 6:30 p.m., and it was often after 7 p.m. by the time Sakuma finished his paperwork and came up the stairs. Kurusu would have dinner ready around that time. But it was true that lately he'd been coming up later and later, right? This is either a red herring or this is really suspicious. Sakuma shrugged and said he wasn't sure why exactly, but...
大学の後輩が渋谷でやってる医院もそうだし、ここらのでっけえ病院、代々木の AH 東京総合病院とかよ。最近忙しいらしいんだよ。の
あ、ごめん。それで？
ま、復興祭が近いから浮かれて怪我するやつが増えてるんじゃねえかとか、それに合わせて例の症候群をもう一度見直す動きがあるとか、いろいろ言われてんだけどよ。
Okay, the fact that he's telling her all this makes me think, okay, maybe he's not maybe he's not doing anything nefarious, or maybe he's kind of like trickling information or just giving her information that sounds innocent on the surface. I don't know what to think at this point.
見直すって6年経って今さら？
わかりやすく復興して治ってんのは町の外観だ。ここはそう簡単に治らねえからな。
Sakuma patted himself on the chest.
うちの患者は別に普段と変わらねえんだけどよ。その後輩やら知り合いやらからなんだかんだと頼まれるのが多くなってんだよ。おかげで肩こって仕方ねえ。
As her father rotated his shoulders to stretch them, Nono told him he was doing a good job. He normally looked like a goofball, but Kurusu knew he was reliable when it counted. Aoba Clinic was far enough from Shibuya that it hadn't been damaged during the earthquake, and so it had remained open. She'd heard Sakuma had taken in patients with minor wounds, a field that was outside his specialty, and treated them. When she helped at the clinic's front desk, the patients would often tell her grateful tales about what he had done then.
どうしたの？この梨。
パーラー西野で安売りしてたの。いただきまーす。
Yui and Yuto had come back from the kitchen with tea and a sliced pear. She stuck a toothpick in a slice as she spoke.
甘くておいしい。ああ、ゆいポン酢買っといてくれた？今日そこねでしょ？
うん、お一人様1個までだったからユウ連れて2個ゲットしてきた。あ、そうだ、いつものスーパータイムセールの時間変わるって。
嘘
？1時間遅くなるんだって。
ああ、困るな。夕ご飯の買い物どうしようかな。
あと風呂場の洗剤切れそうだったよ。あの白のパッケージの。
それは週末のセールを待ってる。
どこの？
青木薬局。
クーポンあるよ。
ほんと？助かる。そうだ、ベランダ見た？洗濯物干す方の角のとこ。
え？何？
苔生えてるの、びっしり。
それが？
なんとかしないと、そのうち赤谷が湧くの。やだ。私だって嫌です。というか、私が一番嫌。何？さっきから。喉痛いの？
風邪？ちょっとありえないんですけど、お医者さんでしょ？
看病するの私たちなんですからね。ただでさえ寝汗が多くて洗濯が大変だって言うのに。
少しは痩せてよ。だいたい父さんの食費だけで月にいくら。
Sakuma slammed his teacup down on the desk. He'd reached the limits of his patience.
ゆい、話がある。ちょっと座れ。
座ってんじゃん。
お前ら。
Sakuma pressed down on his temples again as he wondered where to begin. It felt like his headache was getting worse. But in the end, he couldn't come up with any ideas except to say it directly.
もう少し高校生と中学生らしくできねえのか。
は？
The two of them looked at him as if they didn't know what he was talking about.
お前趣味なんだ？
何急に？
いいからよ、趣味は？
部屋の掃除。
ゆいは？
セールのチラシ集め。
The two of them kept eating their pear slices, unsure of what he was getting at. And then they continued their conversation saying, "What's his problem? It must be terrible getting old."
座れ。座りなさい。
At least he's trying. At least he's like, it seems that the girls are kind of, what's it called? Parentification? But he doesn't want that to be the case. He's not trying to basically be like, oh, the girls have to take care of me. It seems like they kind of took it upon themselves to do it themselves.
座ってるって。
お前ら何歳のうちから初対地見てんだ。セールがどうの、食費がどうの、学生の会話が。
家のことは任せるって言ったのは父さんでしょ？
Kurusu ran the Aoba dorm's budget, and Yui helped her.
もっと遊べっつってんだ。ライブ行ったり、服買ったりよ。
別にいいよ。ネットで聞けるもん。
言われなくても服はフリマとかで買ってます。いいのないときは自分で作っちゃうもの。
Well, that's a hobby, right? Making clothes? Sort of, except she seems like she does it out of necessity, not out of fun.
ちゃんとしすぎなんだよ。好きのない女はモテねえぞ。
クラスの子供っぽい男子になんか興味ありません。あと、のの姉は中等部じゃアイドルだから。
そうなの？
Of course, Yui nodded. Yui went to Hekiho's Academy's middle school, which was located close to the academy itself. The high school and middle school did a lot of activities together, and Kurusu had gone to the latter before as part of her student council president job. Kurusu chuckled.
こっちじゃどっちかっていうと怖がられてるんだけどね。
彼氏の一人もいねえのか。お前の浮いた話聞いたことないぞ。
クラスの子供っぽい男子になんか興味ありません。
へえ、そっちも男子ってそうなの？
年頃の男子なんて何歳でも一緒でしょ。
Kurusu sipped her tea with a smirk.
ブラコンめ。
Oh, brother complex, and then she spat it out like she'd been struck with a bullet. I don't know what they mean by brother complex. I don't know what that's supposed to imply. I know there's the whole thing with like she considers Takeru almost like a brother. I don't know if that means like she's secretly in love with Takeru, so like no other guys catch her interest. I hope that's not the case. It probably, I mean, they're probably going to end up together, at least in one of the routes. Kurusu coughed as she took the tissue from Yui, then wiped down the desk.
変なこと言わないでちょうだい。
Her face was bright red as she yelled at Sakuma.
お前はタクルに構えすぎなんだよ。そんなんだと他の男が寄ってこないぞ。
Wait, Takeru, did I say Takumi? I apologize if I get that their names are so similar that I feel like I've done that unintentionally a couple of times.
そんなことないです。あ、いや、寄ってきてるって意味じゃなくて。
Kurusu waved her hand, annoyed.
とにかく、あの子は。
ののねえ？
Kurusu threw the tissue in the garbage can without answering.
言うとは？この間、ユイが言ってただろう。ほら、同じクラスの今野さんだがなんだか。
違うよ。いや、違わないけど。
Now it was Yuto's turn to turn red.
そうだ、それどうなったの？やっぱりラブレターだったんでしょ？隠し事はなしでしょ？どうなの？
Yuto shrank back into his chair, his tiny body becoming even smaller. Then he nodded. Yui leaned forward, excited.
徳田くんに。徳田くんにバレて、それで。
Yui's expression switched from jovial to serious.
何？からかわれた？
After a short pause, Yuto nodded.
ユウ、ダメだよ。嫌なものは嫌って言わないと。そういうのに慣れたら気づかないうちに曲がってくんだから。でも、もしまたいじめられたりしたら、姉ちゃんに言いな。やり返してやるから。
ゆい、女の子がそういうこと言わないの。
お前が言うか。
どういう意味？
There were two rules in Aoba dorm. After dinner, everyone would gather around the table to talk, and no one was allowed to keep secrets. When Sakuma decided to open an orphanage after the earthquake, he first picked the name Aoba Dorm, and the second thing he decided on were those rules. The four of them talked until around 10 p.m., when Yuto started to yawn. Like, okay, this seems very wholesome, and I hope there's nothing, sinister about this guy. I know that I, am suspicious of him, like I said. In these games, adults, almost every adult, I'm like, what is your deal? Are you going to betray the characters at some point? But for some of them, I don't want that to be the case. Telling each other about their daily lives was how they kept themselves grounded.
入るよ。
Kurusu entered the empty room knowing there wouldn't be an answer. She started by wiping down the desk and then moved on to do the rest of the cleaning the same way she always did. Nothing had changed in the room since Miyashiro had left. It was still filled with books, papers, and DVDs. I'm so curious about what it is that caused him to leave the door. Maybe something about not keeping secrets? Breaking that rule? I don't know. Home was the place where Kurusu felt the most calm and relaxed. It was where she could be herself and be with her family. Her favorite time of the day was after dinner. It wasn't that she was uncomfortable at Hekiho, but her personality was such that she always felt like she had to put her job first. And she liked the role she had at home with her family more than she liked the roles she had in the outside world. As she cleaned the bookshelves, she saw a scrapbook. She'd seen it many times before, but she put it on the desk and started to flip through the pages. The book was filled with information on urban legends and crimes that had taken place in Shibuya, and on the last page was a collection of magazine and newspaper articles. The magazine article was dated about 6 months ago, just before Miyashiro had left home, and the newspaper article was from 6 years ago. It was about the Shibuya earthquake. This was why Miyashiro had left home, and gone to live at Miyashita Park.
日付が6年前の事件とぴったり一致してるんだ。事件も自殺っぽいっていう内容はともかく猟奇的だという点で同じ。
Is that it? It's just like she got really obsessed with it and she pushed back and he's just like, fuck it, I can't live like this. I'm gonna be on my own and you can't tell me what to do.
あなた、殺されますよ。宮代拓先輩。
Something might be coming for him, or maybe Tucker was getting involved in something. As his older sister, she had to protect her little brother. But
私は。
can I face what happened 6 years ago? There was a knock at the door. She tried to take a few deep breaths to calm herself before she spoke.
誰？
俺だ。入るぞ。何泣きそうな顔してんだ？
え？
She quickly put her hand to her face. She wasn't crying. She took a quick breath to help her focus.
どうしたの？
飯ん時、ちょっと変だったろ、お前。
そう？
Sakuma looked at the scrapbook on the desk.
やっぱあいつが また何かやらかしたのか。
His voice was a father's. Kurusu put the scrapbook back on the shelf.
いや、またやらかしそうというか。
相変わらずだな。ラブホテルで警察にお世話になった後、お前ちゃんと止めたんだろ？
Kurusu nodded, remembering what had happened in the hallway that day.
それでも、なんかやめそうになくて。
珍しいな。あいつがお前に逆らうなんて。
それは、私がきちんと。
なんだ？どうしたんだ？
Sakuma sensed something was wrong with Kurusu and sat down on the bed. He motioned for her to speak.
父さん、あの子ってどうやって私じゃなくてうちに馴染んだの？ほら、長期昏睡から目覚めてリハビリ始めた時は全然心を開いてなかったでしょ？
それを言ったら、ユイとユウともそうだろう。言っとくけど、お前もそうだったぞ。
私の話はいいから。
前のこと覚えてねえな。だいたいそんなのちゃんとしたきっかけなんかあんのか。
But he crossed his arms and seemed to be trying to remember the past. Soon after,
いつ馴染んだかなんてわかんねえけど、初めて一緒に夕飯食った日は覚えてるわ。
Kurusu realized that she remembered too. Even after he'd started his physical therapy and learned to walk again, for a while, he'd kept eating dinner alone in his room. Sakuma had told him that everyone was supposed to meet and talk after dinner, but he'd used his poor health as an excuse to stay in his room.
私も覚えてる。そういえば、あれってなんでだったの？
多分な。お前の単価だよ。あいつのリハビリ手伝ってたろ。家族なんだから私が面倒を見るっつって。
Miyashiro had refused, but she told him there was no reason for him to be embarrassed now. She had been in charge of cleaning his catheter when he was in a coma after all.
そっから前にも増してつきっきりで、昔からだ。お前のブラコンぶりは。
だから違うって言ってるでしょ。
んで、あいつが問題なく日常生活できるようになって、そろそろ学校も大丈夫じゃないかって、お前が俺に相談持ちかけたとき、なんて言ったか覚えてるか？
Kurusu tried to think, but she couldn't remember herself saying anything special.
小学生の時、学校にあまり行っていなかったって言うけど、私が行けるようにする。もしあの子をいじめるやつがいたら、私がやり返してやる。嘘でしょ？
She didn't remember that at all.
本当だよ。さっきユイも言ってたじゃないか。明らかに昔のお前の影響だ。今以上にとんがってたからな。それをあいつは部屋の外で聞いてたんだよ。その日の夕飯からだ。あいつが一緒に食べるようになったのが。まあ、結局あいつはあまり学校には行かなかったけどな。それでも保健室登校で卒業できたのはお前のしごきの成果だろう。
As she listened to Sakuma's words, she could feel the terror that had been building inside her start to fade away. Instead, she felt a mixture of confidence, nostalgia, and joy.
そんなこと、私言ったかな？
ののねえ、何してんの？
そっちこそ二人でどうした？
ユウのトイレ。そしたら声が聞こえたから。
そう。
She smiled a little at Yuto's embarrassment. He couldn't go to the bathroom on his own at night. He'd always been shy and spent most of his time clinging to Yui, but the earthquake had given him mild scotophobia, too. The fear of the dark, a type of specific phobia. Specific phobia is a type of mental disorder where the subject exhibits an abnormal mental and psychological rejection towards a specific object or situation, such as acrophobia, the fear of heights, or trypanophobia, the fear of needles. Scotophobia is commonly found in small children, and the primary causes of it are usually due to them experiencing trauma in a dark place or being unable to control the instinctual fear that humans, being non-nocturnal creatures, have of the dark.
ねえ、二人はタクルに帰ってきてほしい？当たり前じゃん。家族だもん。うん。っていうか、タクル兄の掃除当番全部肩代わりしてるの私とユウだから、早く返してもらわないと。あと、買い出し当番も。ああ、それもだ。忘れてた。
Kurusu laughed and looked around her missing brother's room, at her family. There was no changing what happened 6 years ago now.
ユイ。ん？ユウトをいじめるやつがいたら、やり返してやりなさい。え？もちろん。She would just have to protect her family, so that they could live together again. Kurusu took out her smartphone and left the room, leaving her uncertainty behind. Sarika was sitting with her legs crossed on the cold floor, looking up at me. I put my ear up to the door and tried to see if there was anyone outside.
大丈夫。誰もいない。
じゃあ、もう諦めていこうよ。さすがにお尻が限界。
一石武道家。数年前のニュースだったと思うんだけど、トイレの鍵が壊れて2日間くらい閉じ込められた人がいて、救出された時に閉じ込められてどうでしたかって聞かれて、こう答えたんだ。トイレがあってよかったって。
私たちは2人だからトイレできないじゃん。
Gah. Damn it, she's right for once. She's right a lot of times, actually. Give her some credit. But she had a point. I was reaching my mental limits, too. It was past 10 now, which meant we'd spent more than 2 hours locked inside the bathroom. We were on the 5th floor of AH Tokyo General Hospital, in the women's toilet near the lobby. We'd learned in the club room this morning that the creator of the sumo stickers was here. Sarika and I had come to the hospital right after that. Each floor of the hospital had different sections, and each section had its own lobby, so we were able to go around to each floor and gather information by talking to the people there. Well, it was mostly Sarika who did the talking. And then we'd heard that there was someone in a private room in the back of the 5th floor who drew a lot of creepy pictures. Oh, is this AH Tokyo Hospital? I can't remember. Is that where Takumi, is that where he was, like, he had his room in? I got excited. The person drawing the pictures might know something. But there was a problem. Namely, the ward they were staying in. There were 2 wards on the 5th floor. The first was the gastroenterological ward, straight down the hall from the lobby. But to get to the place where we wanted to go, you had to take a right from the lobby and go to the psych ward. To meet with patients in the psych ward, you needed permission from the patient and the hospital. If you weren't there to meet someone, you wouldn't even be allowed in. While we were sitting in the lobby trying to come up with a plan, visiting hours for the psych ward ended. Then hours for the gastroenterological ward ended too, and we had no good excuse for being there any longer. And that's how we got where we were now. If I hadn't taken Sarika's advice and chosen to hide in the women's restroom, where the stalls were inevitably in use more often, someone would have gotten suspicious of us a long time ago. No, maybe they already were suspicious.
少しでも情報を得て帰りたかったのに。
When Ito saw the pair in the pictures at the club room, he proposed we start investigating them immediately. But I decided to temporarily leave that to him and visit the hospital. I didn't tell Ito where I was going or why. If he knew I was putting a priority on verifying information on a homepage run by a crazy man, with no sources even given, he'd make fun of me. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. That's why I wanted to find something. My phone suddenly started to vibrate. Oh, it's probably Kurusu calling.
Kurusu?
Yeah. I frowned when I saw the name. Damn, and at a time like this, too.
Taku?
You're not going to answer it? Sarika seemed to say silently. I decided to ignore the phone call.
いいの？
仕方ないだろう。きっと出たら面倒なことになる。
Whatever it was likely something I didn't want to hear, and I couldn't exactly hold a conversation right now. Ooh, okay. Ooh, I'm curious. Let's do a negative one in here. Two hours, huh? I didn't know being quiet and doing nothing for so long could be so tiring. Like, I have a feeling you got the two of them stuck in a small space together. I can only imagine what the positive one is going to be like, so I'm more curious to see the negative one. Sarika had her arms crossed over her knees. She looked upset. Was I imagining it, or has she been really fidgety over the last 10 minutes? Probably because she's got to go to the bathroom.
まさかこの年でタクと一緒に女子トイレの個室に何時間もこもることになるなんて。
そう言わずにもうちょっと付き合ってくれ。
いいけど。でもこれ以上粘っても意味ないと思う。
Sarika sighed a little. I looked away from her. I was starting to fidget a little, maybe because we'd been talking about going to the bathroom. Or so I said, but... To be honest, I was thinking of calling it a day too. The reason why was I really had to go to the bathroom. I was about to piss myself. Of course, I was aware that I was already sitting right next to a toilet. But I didn't think it was a good idea to use the women's bathroom, particularly in front of Sarika, so I was holding it in. But I was about to hit my limit. But still, if I missed a chance like this because of a simple biological function, it would be humiliating. Ito would laugh at me for sure. I was the president of the newspaper club. I had overruled the objections of the vice president to come here. I couldn't give up. I had a reputation to protect. So I...
なあ、おのえ。
お？帰る気になった？
Sarika stood up, looking relieved.
それがいいよ。また明日来ようよ。
いや、まだ帰らない。
じゃあ何？
しょんべんしたい。
お？
だから悪いけど、一瞬外に出ててくれないか。
やだよ。見つかっちゃうよ。
ほんの30秒ぐらいでいいから。
やだって。それならタクが出てってよ。
僕がしょんべんしたいのに、なんで僕が出ていかなくちゃいけないんだ。
あ、そっか。じゃあ、後ろ向いててあげるから、ここでしちゃいなよ。
How could she suggest something like that in such an innocent way?
恥ずかしいだろ。
今さらじゃん。私とタクの間柄でしょ。
お前本気で言ってるのか。てかお前本気で言ってるのか。
I was so freaked out that I was repeating myself.
いいからいいから、パパッとやっちゃいなって。
Sarika grinned a little as she turned around. Evidently, she had no intention of leaving the stall. No way, there was no way this was happening, but to be honest, my bladder felt like it was about to explode. I couldn't last any longer. I didn't have a choice.
絶対こっち見るなよ。絶対だぞ。
I love how it's like the negative ones either go between Serica usually getting killed in some horrible way, or something inconsequential like I have to pee in the vicinity of her.
Okay.
I lifted the lid, lowered my zipper, and got ready. I felt a wave of pleasure and release as I let go. Ah, that's better. The sound, though, was extremely embarrassing. I should have had Serica put her hands over her ears. But it was too late now. Asking her to do so at this point would just be more embarrassing. And since I'd held it in for so long, there was a lot that had to come out. It was taking long enough that it was actually starting to freak me out a little. Is this gonna be it? I just pee forever. Hurry up. Come on, hurry up and finish. She laughed. She just laughed. How the hell do you laugh at a guy who's going to the bathroom?
いっぱい出るね。
はい。
I want to kill myself. I'm going to kill myself. Please, someone kill me. That's it? Okay. Alright. If that happened, I don't think I would ever recover. But Serica and I were in a situation where that could happen at any minute. Maybe it was time to go home after all, as that stupid idea crossed my mind.
ちょっと。ねえ、タク。とりあえず今日は諦めて出直そうよ。
Serica stood up and rubbed her butt a little.
お前は気にならないのかよ。
え？
この病院は。
This was the hospital we'd snuck into a long time ago, looking for an urban legend called Ami-chan. In the end, we had to give up before we could figure it out, but there was some connection between the sumo stickers and this hospital.
そりゃ気になるよ。調べられるんなら調べたい。でもこうなっちゃったらさ、明日からちゃんと面会時間に通い詰めて入れるチャンスを待った方がよくない？
Meh.
それはまあ。
今だったらこの回で見つかりさえしなければ普通に外に出られるでしょ？
This place had an ER, so it was open at night, and people would be going in and out. As long as we could get to the first floor lobby safely, we'd be able to walk right out. Damn, maybe we don't have a choice.
わかった。とりあえず。
My phone vibrated again.
またか。
I thought it was Kurusu calling me again, but it wasn't. I checked once again that there was no one in the restroom and answered the phone.
もしもし。
おい、宮代。お前、今どこにいる？
どうした？
副部長が事件を追うのはやめなさいって切れてるぞ。
Seriously?
今、あなたたちは何してるんだって問い詰められた。てか、怒鳴られた。怖かった。
お前、まさか。
Yeah, Ito said.
全部喋った。そしたら、設置した監視カメラを外しなさい。いや、私が今すぐ外しに行くっつって電話切られた。
お前、そこ耐えろよ。
無理言うなよ。思わず副部長に敬語だったぞ、俺。
Ah, damn it, that coward. Well, I knew how he felt.
で、とりあえずお前のことは、何か別に気になったことがあったみたいで、尾上と一緒にそれを調べてるみたいですって言っておいたから。何してるか知らねえけど、副部長に殺される前に謝っとけよ。てか、電話に出てやれ。
He hung up before I could say anything. It was clear he wanted to stay out of this. With nothing else to do, I put away my phone.
のんちゃん元気出たんだ。よかった。
Serica looked happy. She must have overheard the conversation.
いや、よかったじゃないよ。
でものんちゃんらしいよ。
Serika nodded to herself, satisfied. She really did look happy.
お前どっちの味方なんだ？
タクだよ。タクだってのんちゃんが元気ないの嫌でしょ？
そりゃ、いやいい。
タク行くの？
言っとくけど、諦めたわけじゃないからな。
I just didn't feel like I was going to find out anything more by staying here. I just come back tomorrow during visiting hours. And dodge Kurusu, somehow.
よし。
There was no one around. The nurse at the nurse's station was staring at her PC. If we crouched down, she couldn't see us. I motioned to Serika and we quietly left the bathroom, heading for the lobby. We made it across and arrived in front of the elevator. Yeah, this doesn't look creepy at all. I looked ahead and saw an automatic door with thick frosted glass. The psych ward lay beyond it. Next to it was a control terminal with an intercom. When I'm visiting, you'd say your name and have them unlock the door from the inside. During visiting hours, I'd been sitting in the lobby waiting for the automatic door to open. I tried to see if there was a way to sneak in alongside another visitor, but had run out of time before I'd gotten the chance.
タク、しょうがないよ。出直そう。
Serika must have noticed me staring at it because she motioned for me to leave. She was right. If we used the elevator, they might notice the sound. We just have to take the stairs.
Huh?
Oh, it just opened itself?
タク？
It's like someone wants us to go check it out. Serika stopped just before she reached the stairs.
いや、今。
Oh, someone definitely wants us to find this out. Maybe whoever's got all those security cameras, what is it called? The Shibuya, what's it? The public works. Like, they're behind this and they're just kind of nudging us in the direction of where we want to go. But someone also wants to kill us. I don't know. I heard a beeping noise coming from the automatic door. Is someone coming out? I dragged Serika out into the landing for the stairs. That was weird. I didn't hear any footsteps. Huh? Huh. I took a look around to the corner and saw the door was open.
なんで?
It was definitely open, and there was no sign that anyone had come out. I could see deeper into the ward now that the frosted glass was out of the way. The hallway was dark, and it was long past lights out. Why? Why had it opened? Was it set to open automatically from the inside, and someone had walked close enough to trip the sensor? I hadn't seen anyone pass by. I nodded back at Serika. She pointed down the stairs. Someone was coming up. What should we do? There's enough time for the elevator to get here. The lobby's out of the question. Should we go upstairs? Or will we be safe if we just walk downstairs and act like nothing's wrong? The dark hallway seemed to be beckoning to me. There were no guards or nurses around. Oh, can I make a choice here? Probably not. No, there's not really any choices in this other than the delusions. I grabbed Serika's hand and ran straight for the open door.
わかんないけどチャンスだ。行こう。
Serika was behind me, so I couldn't tell if she nodded or not. I ran faster so I wouldn't have to hear my heart pounding, and a moment later, we were inside the psych ward. As I listened to the door shut behind me, I moved up next to the wall and took a look around. It was too dark to see all the way to the end of the hallway, but there didn't seem to be anyone there. The green light of the emergency exit reflected off the floor, bathing us in dim light. I realized I was still holding Sarika's hand. I quickly let go and she turned her hand toward the wall.
Huh?
She was pointing at a simple map of the ward. It showed the nurse's station, the exam rooms, and what were probably the numbers for the patients' rooms.
確か絵描きって奥の個室に入院しているんだよな。
Sarika nodded, but the map didn't say if the rooms were singles or not. Like, we know what, at the end of Chaos had, Takumi died, right? Like, the guy that was actually in the, that's assuming this, I believe, AH Tokyo Hospital. I think that's where he was, but I can't quite remember. But he did die at the end. It was a little, from what I remember, it was like, some of it was left up to interpretation, but I'm pretty sure, yeah, that the Takumi, the actual body of him that was in the hospital room, he died. So it can't be him that was making the pictures, but that'd be a wild reveal if we open it up and it was him. I looked at the doors in front of me. There were plates with what looked like 2 patient names. These rooms were doubles, which meant any room with the same layout was also probably a double. I looked back at the map. Where were the private rooms?
ここら辺だ。くそ、やっぱり奥の方だな。
あっち?
Sarika pointed further down the hall. With Sarika behind me, I turned to the side and started to walk as quietly as I could. That weird scent, unique to hospitals, was stinging my nose. I was used to it, but it was still a little creepy. And it was too quiet. If this really is a psych ward, then I figured I'd hear some crazy screaming or something.
いや、偏見か。いくら閉鎖病棟とはいえ、大半は高齢の認知症の人たちだろうし。
Alright, a sealed ward is a hospital ward usually for mental patients with a locked entrance as well as heavily restricted access and visiting rules. In the broader sense, a sealed ward refers to any hospital ward that cannot be accessed without permission from staff. You wouldn't expect the patients to be screaming 24 hours a day, especially after lights out. But what's with the air here? No, it doesn't matter. It's just another dim hallway. I'm not going to the scene of a crime this time.
Huh?
Come to think of it, when I first went inside the Love Hotel, I tried to get past the door. Oh, I didn't even make that connection! And then the door opened for him just like it happened here. Yeah, it's like something is kind of nudging us to explore the truth behind everything. I turned around and saw the empty hallway stretching out before me past a confused Sarika. The automatic door was on the other side of the corner.
あの時も鍵が勝手に。
That's right, the door to the hotel had opened on its own, just like the automatic door here. The police told me I was mistaken, but maybe it really was.
タク、どうしたの?
いや。
I realized I'd stopped moving. Hmm? Crap, is that a nurse?
こっち.
ああ、松下さん、点滴逆血してたよ。
え、またですか？外しちゃってました？
それがね。
I could hear what sounded like 2 nurses in the hallway.
バレちゃった?
いや。
I listened carefully. They seemed to be talking about a patient. Good, they hadn't found us. We would have to stay here until they left.
タク、そういえばさ。
ん？
昔忍び込んだ時ってどこに行ったか覚えてる?
I took my ear off the door.
そりゃ覚えて。いや、具体的にどこか覚えてないな。
I tried to think back to what I'd seen so many times in the dream. It was 8 or 9 years ago now. At the time, I was still in elementary school.
でもこの病棟じゃなかったとは思う。
I couldn't remember how we got in exactly, but I didn't remember sneaking through an automatic door. And
あれは精神科に見られるような治療じゃなかった。
actually, I don't think you could even call that treatment, whatever it was. I want to see that shot again, the one that always has the pink-haired girl. Because I'm like, that could be Remy. Like, first I was thinking it was Serica, because Serica also has pink hair, but I'm like, obviously they saw something, someone getting a treatment that looked very similar to what the Gigalomaniacs. So when you think about when they were in elementary school, and the you know, when the collapse happened, I guess it would line up, right? I guess. I was about to ask before I saw her face and realized what was wrong.
大丈夫か?
大丈夫だよ。
She clearly wasn't okay. Did she remember what happened before? Come to think of it, actually, she tried to act strong and failed last time too.
大したことじゃない。絵描きの情報を確かめて帰る。それだけだろ。
The nurses must have finished talking because I could hear the footsteps getting further away.
よし。
Serica slapped her cheeks with her hands to try and snap herself out of it.
行こう、タク。
あ。
When we got to the room, the dim light of the emergency exit lamp was shining down on it.
ここ?
I nodded. This was probably the place. It was a private room in the back, and there was no nameplates on the other private rooms we'd passed.
開けるぞ。
There was no time to hesitate. We could run into a nurse at any moment. I looked to the left and right and checked there was no one there before opening the door. It was a dark room with no lights. There was enough light to see my hands, but not my feet. Hmm?
誰もいない。
The bed against the wall was empty. The blanket was rolled up. Serica looked over to see what I saw. Was this not the place?
他の部屋を探してみるか。
I tried to leave when Serica grabbed my arm.
なんだよ。
タク、あれ？
え？
Serica pointed at the back wall of the room. I bet it's got the drawings of the sumo guy everywhere. Serica pointed at the back wall of the room. Her hand was shaking a little. It was too dark to see. I softly crept forward to get a better look.
Huh?
Yep. The whole wall was covered with drawings of the sumo sticker in what looked like red paint.
気持ち悪い。
Serica grabbed onto my arm. The warmth reminded me I wasn't alone. That made me feel just a little better. If I'd seen this alone, I might have screamed and gone crazy. I noticed that there was an unpleasant scent coming from the red paint on the wall. It's blood, right? Although why would they just let the patient just draw this stuff with blood if that were the case? I took another step forward, and then I realized. I put my hand over my mouth to stifle a scream, and then another hand over Serica's mouth to stop her from screaming too. Serica ripped my hand away from her mouth and clung to me tighter.
これ絵の具じゃない。血だ。
I know they said it's blood and they said it was red, but like would have been kind of funny if they're like, it's shit. He drew it with his own shit. This strange smell like rust was the same thing I'd smelled at the Love Hotel during the Revolving Dead incident. Who drew these? Who would draw something like this, and in blood? I imagined someone locked in a dim room, endlessly painting, drawing paintings in blood on a blank wall, and a shiver went down my spine. I got goosebumps all over my body. There's something very wrong with this room. I suddenly realized I was holding a smartphone in my trembling hand, and this is once again where it's like he's doing something out of his control. The door unlocking, him going in and taking shots with his camera without realizing it. And without realizing it, I pushed the record button and started filming the drawings on the wall, right? Someone wants us to be finding these things and displaying them and showing them to people. It's like he's a sleeper agent, and whenever he sees these things, it just like activates something in his subconscious to do these actions. Serica tried to drag me back. But my body wouldn't move. I knew it was dangerous to stay here, but I couldn't move. Serica was saying something behind me, but while I could hear the sounds, I couldn't understand what they meant. And then... I heard a sound from somewhere in the dark room. It sounds like someone scraping, like they're using their finger to scrape, maybe doing another painting. It was the sound of someone scratching something. I gulped, and my body froze up even more. Someone is in here with us. Someone is in the room. In the darkness, I could hear the sound of something hard being scratched again. But the sound bounced off the walls of the square room, and I couldn't tell where it was coming from. I desperately searched around the room, eyes cloudy with terror. Oh, a girl. Didn't expect that. I don't know why why should I be surprised? It's always a girl. It's always one guy's just surrounded by girls. So she's gonna be another one. How long had they been there? A girl was crouching on the floor alone with her back to us. Does her hair look kind of pink? That'd be wild if that was like Remy. She was right next to the bloody sumos, a hand wrapped around her knees, and she was staring at her feet. She was staring at a drawing of a sumo sticker. It was too dark to tell for sure, but I thought I saw something dripping off her finger. That was blood. She'd cut her finger to draw that. She was drawing those pictures, because I can't remember what happened to Remy at the end. Like, you know, like I said, the ending of it was a little strange. This could be a new character. I couldn't speak. My throat wouldn't work. I had questions to ask her. Who are you? Did you draw all the stickers that were all over town? Why are you drawing those? It could be that girl that they saw back then, the one that was like getting the treatment done, and then she'd like snapped, and now they've have to put her in the psych ward. But I just couldn't speak. A strange sight. Except now that's not the case, because when they saw her when they were elementary school students, she looked like a high schooler, so she looks about their age. The strange sight before me filled with an indescribable terror. I was overcome by the idea if I talked to her now, and she turned around, she would transform into something and attack me. I heard my name and turned towards Serica. Her hand was clutching my arm tightly. Don't tell me that she can't see her. She can't see her. Shaking, I pointed at the girl on the floor, but... there was no one there. Ba ba ba. I was standing in the middle of a hospital room, shaking, and staring at the drawings of the sumo sticker design on the wall. My hand had numbly lowered, and my smartphone was recording only my crotch. Serica looked at me, worried.
子って何？
今そこにいただろ。
But there was no one in the direction I was pointing. Just eerie pictures in an empty room.
やだ、怖いこと言わないでよ。
じゃあ今のはただの妄想？
Or maybe whoever had drawn the bloody pictures on the wall was already dead, but some trace of their spirit was bound into those paintings and trapped inside the room. No, that was way too paranormal for me. It was impossible. But I couldn't get the image of the crouching girl I thought I had seen out of my mind.
おのえ、行こう。ここは多分良くない。
I took Serica's hand and slowly started to walk backward. It felt like if I'd made a sound, all the eyes of the sumos drawn on the wall would open and stare at me. We made it back to the door and jumped out into the hallway. I could hear frantic voices down the hallway.
まずい。
The hospital staff must have heard my scream. They probably thought something had happened to a patient. They were going to find us. Huh? Did I just hear a sound from the emergency exit? Serga had grabbed the door handle, shouting at me in a hushed voice.
Huh? ああ。
どう？そっちは？異常なしです。何があったんでしょう？
I could faintly hear the voices of the nurses running back and forth across the hallway. Evidently, they hadn't found us.
助かったね。
I could hear Serica breathe a sigh of relief in the darkness. So here's the thing. Do the nurses see? Do they not see all of those pictures on the wall? Do they just assume because it's someone in a psych ward that that's just normal? Or is it only like us that can see those pictures on the wall? I don't know. I used the light from my phone to look around. We were on the landing of a staircase. These were probably the emergency stairs.
降りられそうだね。
Serica looked down, illuminating the stairs with her own phone.
なんで開いてたんだ？
非常口だからでしょ？
でも閉鎖病棟だぞ。
If they were keeping the automatic door locked, there was no way they wouldn't lock the emergency exit.
きっと閉め忘れだ。
Huh?
Did they? Could we really get that lucky? And I was sure I had heard a sound.
タク、それより今はここから出ないと。
Serica pointed down the stairs.
ああ、そうだな。
I used the light from my phone to look at the knob of the emergency door. Good, it was the type that opened from the inside. The other doors probably were too.
下へ降りて出口を探そう。
オッケー。タク、さっきの壁の絵。
Serica was probably thinking the same thing I was. Was that where the creator of the sumo stickers was kept? Or someone who had something to do with the case? But in the end, I had no answer. There was a whole wall of sumo sticker images drawn in someone's blood. That was the only information we had. Serica seemed to understand that as well, because she didn't ask any more questions.
よし、開いた。
I unlocked the door and quietly opened it, then peered down the hallway beyond. Oh, that's the... oh, okay, I forgot about them. That's right, the woman that I thought was an old man and that little girl. That girl has the same hairstyle as the girl that was in the room, but it's like a younger version of her. Right? I ducked without even thinking. I placed my hand on the open door to support myself, then quickly yanked my body back inside toward the stairs. Why?
なんであの二人がここにいる
There was no mistaking it. Those were the two that Ito had noticed in the club room this morning. Wait, what? Wait, what? Oh! Yeah, they didn't even... Okay, so these two were in the pictures. In the previous pictures. Yeah, because, like, Ito said something like, oh, I found something, but he never actually specified what it was he found. Serica stuck her head out just a little and saw them, too. She dropped down. I put my hand over her mouth before she could finish. I know, so don't make any noise. Why are they here? Is there some connection between them and the sumo stickers after all? I could hear footsteps. Theirs. I couldn't move. They'd heard me. I froze and concentrated on what I was hearing. Good, they were heading further away. Oh. Uh-oh. Oh no. Oh no. They were getting closer. Who are these two? What are they doing here? Maybe.
もしかして事件の犯人は
取り返しのつかないことになる可能性だってあるの。
For a moment I felt incredibly cold, like my whole body had gotten smaller. The hand I was holding against the door was slippery with sweat. My heart was pounding loudly, and it hurt to breathe. No, no. Suddenly my frozen body was yanked upward. I stumbled and tripped, then was yanked up again. Oh, he left his phone behind, didn't he? And they're gonna find it. Just as Serica kicked open some kind of door and dragged me through, I saw them pick up my phone. Well, shit.
もう大丈夫かな。少し休もう。
I collapsed right onto the ground. I tried to catch my breath, but it wasn't working. My legs were shaking from exhaustion, and my hands were shaking from the still lingering terror.
大丈夫だよ。追ってきてはないみたいだから。
It was all I could do to muster a feeble nod. I had no idea why, but my hands shaking made me really mad. I slammed them into the asphalt. Damn it. How? What were they doing there? And now they have my phone with all of its data.
やっぱりきっと歴史シールと関係あるんだよ。あの二人。
It couldn't be a coincidence.
あれ、着信あったんだ。しんちゃん？もしもし、尾上です。どうしたの？うん。
My breathing had calmed down. I needed to get my thoughts in order. My phone had a lock on it. They wouldn't be able to do anything with it immediately. It's clear the sumo stickers are involved somehow, not to mention...
まだ事件が起こっていないのに壁一面に貼られた歴史シールが引っかかるな
Come to think of it, Kurusu said she was going to take down the security camera. What happened with that? Oh no, she could get herself caught up in something like they're gonna catch her there. Did something already happen to her? Maybe like they can't find her? Serica turned around, moving very slowly.
どうした
What did that expression mean? Serica looked away from me for a moment, and then back as if afraid of something painful.
のんちゃんが刺された。
Whoa! Whoa! Okay, didn't see that coming. I thought she would have just gone missing. Shit. Alright, guys, that was a crazy episode. So much information to take in, so many connections starting to line up. Kurusu learning about, like, more of her home life, the dorm that she's staying in, or, like, the group home with the father figure who I'm trying not to be suspicious of, but, like, I just can't help myself, especially when he talks about how all the hospitals seem to be, like, busy lately. And speaking of that, the connection with the AH Tokyo Hospital, having the mysterious girl who might be behind the sumo stickers that apparently only Takeru was able to see, and, you know, that being the place that him and Serica broke into when they were kids and apparently saw something very traumatizing there. And then, you know, that little girl, the old woman, having Takeru's phone now, of course, Kurusu being stabbed at the end. I'm guessing it was when she went to, like, go and take down the camera. So now, like, she's involved in a situation where, like, she needs to be silenced because she's starting to learn more than she should. And also the whole thing, like, the connection with the what's it called? The Love Hotel, where the door opened so that Takeru could go in, and then he was filming without realizing it. It's almost like someone is pushing him to find these things, so they want him to get to the truth. Yeah, it's just a lot. It's a lot, and I'm really interested to see, like, the consequences of Kurusu having been stabbed, and, like, why and how and where and all that. So I'm very excited for the next episode to see what happens next. I hope you are too. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week for the next part of Chaos Child. Special shoutouts to my top tier patrons: Revealing Storm, Lynn's VA, Kenju Storm, iCognito, Kevlar, Sean, Waz RD1, iZuzu, and Ronnie RKX.